Hey, this is Jeremy Wallace, Microsoft certified Azure Solutions Architect Expert and Senior Cloud Infrastructure Engineer for Safari Micro. I'm making these short little videos for AZ-140, configuring and operating Microsoft Azure Virtual Desktop. Today's video covers the unit Azure Virtual Desktop for the Enterprise, the title of the Learning Path Plan and Azure Virtual Desktop Implementation. So let's dive right into it. This is only going to be a few minute video. Azure Virtual Desktop is a desktop an application virtualization service that runs in the Azure cloud. So you can publish full entire desktop Windows 11, Windows 10 desktop experiences, or individual applications that are virtualized on that OS that you can publish out to people. And you can get to those virtual workspaces or applications through pretty much any device. That's Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux. There's native applications that you can use to be able to access that virtual desktop experience or that virtual application. You can also use any modern web browser, so any HTML5 capable browser. That's going to be your Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and Safari browsers. All of those modern browsers are capable of actually accessing that full virtual desktop experience or the virtualized apps. But there are some limitations. Typically, it's recommended to use the native application, especially if you're using a device that has multiple screens. So you can use that virtual desktop over those multiple screens. So this video in particular is talking about virtual desktops for enterprise. So when we talk about enterprise, we're talking enterprise scale. So that's going to be 1,000 virtual desktops or above. So this video is going to talk a little bit about that architecture. The demand in the enterprise world for Azure Virtual Desktops, or virtual desktops in particular, are some of these that are highlighted here. Security and regulation applications like financial services, healthcare, and government. So Azure Virtual Desktop really gives you a way to securely virtualize that and get that out to your financial users. Speaking of experience for us, we've used it at Safari Micro with our finance team, being able to deliver secure virtual desktops that they can work from no matter what the location they are in. So financial services, healthcare, government, they do have particular enterprise needs to be able to scale out these virtual desktop solutions. Elastic workforce needs like remote work, mergers, acquisitions, short-term employees, contractors, and partner access, especially in the world of mergers and acquisitions. I've seen this a lot. So companies will acquire another large company, especially on a global scale. I've worked with one particular client that's acquired companies left and right. And so remote desktops can be a great solution to quickly onboard them into a compliant environment. So to get them, your company's controlled virtual desktop and applications in a very quick manner. So Azure Virtual Desktops, you can scale up very quickly so you can get them the virtual desktops they need tomorrow. When your acquisition's closing today, they can be all working on the virtual desktops tomorrow. You don't have to wait on new hardware to get out, and they can use their existing hardware to access that virtual desktop, or if they're in a bring your own device situation. Which leads to the next point, specific employees. So employees that are BYOD, that bring their own devices, mobile users, call centers, and branch workers. That's another great need on an enterprise level for the use of virtual desktops. So people that are moving around, Azure Virtual Desktops provides a great way to be able to access their virtual workspace from literally anywhere. I've used it on my phone. I've been in the car. I've been on an airplane, being able to access these virtual desktops. All my data is secure in the cloud in an Azure Virtual Desktop, but I'm able to move around and have that mobility without relying or worrying about the particular device that I'm using being broken or stolen and that data being compromised. It all is in a virtual workspace. And then specialized workloads like design and engineering, legacy app software and development tests. So getting, especially with Azure Virtual Desktops, you can get GPU enabled sizes so that even AutoCAD workload, Photoshop, etc., can all be utilized on your virtual desktop, and you don't have to wait through trying to procure that hardware, especially when we've had things like hardware shortages where it's harder to get those devices in a timely manner into their hands. Virtual desktops is a great solution to be able to get that hardware to them virtually using whatever whatever device that they do have access to at the moment, and get them working with a much more powerful virtual desktop infrastructure in the back end. Um, Looking at this diagram here, this is provided by Microsoft. I just want to kind of dive into it. This diagram shows a few things. The application endpoints are in the customer's on-premise network. So they're showing an on-premise situation here. This is their endpoints: HTML5, Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, and Linux. Their application endpoints are there. And then they have an express route gateway going from their on-premise network to their Azure virtual networks. So Express Route is a great way if you need that type of throughput. You can use a site-to-site VPN as well to connect your Azure environment to an on-premise network. And this is how your virtual desktops that are in Azure are going to be accessing on-premise resources. So whether that's on-prem file shares, or applications or other workloads, printers and things that are in the office, that's going to all happen over that express route, which is going to give you the most performance, or through a site-to-site VPN that you may have set up between Azure and your on-premise environment. In this particular diagram, they have an Active Directory subnet and they have an Active Directory domain server in their Azure environment, as well as one in their on-premise environment. They're running Azure AD Connect to synchronize their identities from on-prem into Azure Active Directory, which is a key component there. And then they have, because they do have some domain controllers up into Azure, that's what is using normal computer domain login to their virtual desktops. In this diagram, the Azure Virtual Desktop control plane handles things like web access, gateway, broker diagnostics, and extensibility components like REST API. So this is all in the background. This is one of the huge benefits of Azure Virtual Desktop, as opposed to other VDI solutions. Take remote desktop services, Microsoft's, their long virtual desktop access type solution for the longest time was RDS, Remote Desktop Services, Terminal Services before that. These are all things that you had to set up. You had to set up a gateway, you had to set up a broker, you had to set up a licensing server, you had to set up the public web access, and those were all moving parts that you had to handle. Azure Virtual Desktop is a great way to take that. That all happens in the background on that Azure Virtual Desktop control plane. That's all automated, and so you really don't have to worry about that. And then you're just interacting and setting things up from the Azure portal and from the host itself, the server. And then another video will cover more of the individual components that goes into it. Again, this video just briefly overviews the enterprise environment with Azure Virtual Desktop. So customer manages Active Directory domain services in Azure AD. So that's what the customer is going to manage. They're going to be managing their domain controller, which they already do, Active Directory, and Azure Active Directory, the users that get synced into like Microsoft 365 and Azure AD. They're going to manage things like Azure Files and NetApps, and the actual host pools and workspaces. So these virtual desktop servers that they go to, that's all going to be in the hands of the IT manager, or the end client, or whoever's managing this environment. Those are the things that I control: identity and the servers themselves. But the control plane again handles everything else. So that's all automated in the background. That's not a headache that's on you, or the IT manager, or the end client. Then to increase capacity, the customer uses 2 Azure subscriptions. So this is another thing that we've seen in enterprise environments, being able to spread out entire virtual desktop environments and really Azure infrastructure environments altogether into multiple subscriptions. So in this particular diagram that Microsoft provided, they're spinning up these spoke virtual network with more Azure virtual desktops in an entirely separate subscription, and that's being VNet peered. Essentially Azure magic networking between this virtual network and their primary virtual network, and it's all operating as one network that's able to interact with on-premise through that gateway subnet and that express route. And then they also have these peered the Azure NetApp files, and all their storage accounts, so all interconnected. So this is in an enterprise level what you're looking at, big picture of how this would work, is automated Azure Virtual Desktop control plane in the background. You're managing just a typical Azure environment, really, and then you're scaling out these hosts, which can be in the thousands when it's in an enterprise environment. So that's it for this video. That covers this brief unit. Stay tuned for more. We'll be diving in through all of this Microsoft cert until we get through the whole thing. So stay tuned. Follow me for more videos.